Paul was a young man who had always loved plants more than machines or weapons. While other colonists spent their days building new shelters, fixing engines, or training for defense duty, Paul spent his hours in the fields outside the human colony. He carried a small pack with samples of soil, water containers, and a scanner that helped him study plants. For him, every new leaf and every flower was like a hidden treasure waiting to be discovered. The planet they had settled on was called Tyrannus, a green world with wide grass plains, blue rivers, and tall forests. Humans were new here, but they were not alone. The world was home to the Drevians, an alien people taller than humans with pale silver skin and eyes that glowed faintly under sunlight. Their culture was old and strong. They believed in power, endurance, and skill in battle. Among them, strength was the highest virtue. Paul had heard that Drevians respected humans for their clever tools, but looked down on them for their softer ways. He did not care much. He only wanted to study the plants. Still, the Drevians were hard to ignore. Sometimes they passed near his study grounds, training with long staffs, their voices echoing across the plain. One afternoon, Paul found a flower that caught his attention. It grew near the riverbank, small compared to the tall grass around it. Its petals were golden with a touch of red at the tips, glowing under the sun. He gently knelt down, touched the soil, and smiled. This was the kind of plant he loved most, fragile yet beautiful. He carefully plucked one flower and placed it in his sample pouch. As he stood up, he noticed someone watching him. Across the river stood a Drevian woman. She was tall, strong in posture, with silver skin shining in the daylight. Her long, dark hair was tied behind her head, and she wore light armor plates that marked her as a warrior. Paul froze for a moment. Encounters with Drevians were not rare, but this one felt different. The woman walked across the shallow part of the river and came closer. She stopped a few steps away and looked at the flower in his hand. "What is that?" she asked, her voice calm but deep. Paul held the flower carefully. "It's a local bloom. I study plants here. I think it's beautiful." The woman tilted her head. "Beautiful? It looks weak. It will wither in a day." Paul smiled faintly. "Yes, but sometimes beauty is in things that don't last forever." She studied him with sharp eyes. For a long moment she did not speak, and Paul wondered if he had said something foolish. But then she stepped closer. "You are human. My name is Rena. What is yours?" "Paul," he said simply. "Paul," she repeated, testing the sound. "Why do you pick that flower?" He thought for a moment. Then, without planning it, he extended the flower toward her. "Would you like to hold it?" Rena looked down at the small bloom in his hand. Her eyes narrowed slightly. She did not move at once. Instead, she asked a question that surprised him. "Is this how humans ask for mates?" Paul blinked, stunned. "What?" She looked straight at him, serious and firm. "Among my people, gifts are for bonding. When a warrior gives another a token, it means challenge or union. A flower seems too fragile to mean challenge. So I ask, do humans use this for choosing mates?" Paul felt his face warm. He shook his head quickly. No, not exactly. For us, a flower can mean many things. Sometimes it is a gift of friendship. Sometimes it is respect. Sometimes, yes, it can mean love, but not always." Rena raised her brow. "So you give it to me as what?" He hesitated, searching for words. He did not want to insult her, yet he also did not want her to believe he had just proposed marriage. Finally, he said, "I give it as a sign of respect. You seemed curious, and I thought you should see it up close." The Drevian woman accepted the flower at last. Her long fingers held it gently, though he could see how strange it looked in her warrior's hand. The small golden petals looked fragile against her silver skin. Behind her, a group of Drevians had gathered at the river's edge. They had seen the exchange, and quiet murmurs spread among them. Paul felt uneasy, but Rena did not seem troubled. She examined the flower closely as if it held a hidden message. "Strange," she said softly. "Your people treasure things that break easily. Our people treasure things that endure, yet there is meaning here." Paul relaxed a little, glad she had not been offended. "Sometimes the things that don't last are the ones that matter most," he explained. "Because you know they are here only for a short while." Rena looked at him again, her eyes unreadable. Then she turned and lifted the flower slightly, as if showing it to her kin. The Drevians murmured louder now. Some laughed, others frowned. Paul shifted uncomfortably. Rena spoke in her own language to them, and though Paul could not understand, he sensed she was defending the gesture. Finally, she turned back to him. They think it's strange. But I will keep it. Paul nodded, a bit embarrassed but also curious. If you want, I can tell you more about our plants. Some of them are useful. Some even heal wounds. Her eyes lit up slightly at that. Healing from plants? We have herbs, but not many. Show me. That was how their first meeting truly began. Paul showed her the small notes and sketches he had made, and Rena listened more than he expected. She asked many questions. What roots were safe? How long seeds could sleep before growing? What humans used flowers for in their homes? She was serious, almost intense in her curiosity. As the sun lowered and the light grew softer, the Drevians who had been watching finally left. Only Rena remained. She still held the flower carefully, as if it had become more than just a fragile plant. Before leaving, she looked at Paul one more time. Paul, human botanist, you gave me this flower. Whether it is respect or friendship, I will not forget. Next time we meet, I will ask you more. And then she walked away, tall and proud, leaving Paul standing by the river with his thoughts spinning. He had only wanted to share something beautiful. Instead, he had started something he could not yet understand. That night, back in the colony, Paul could not stop thinking about her words. Is this how humans ask for mates? He laughed nervously to himself, shaking his head. He had never imagined such a misunderstanding. But deep inside, he wondered if this strange question from a Drevian warrior was the start of something greater than he could guess. The next morning, Paul returned to the riverbank with his pack. He had not planned to see Rena again so soon, yet something inside told him she might come. He carried more notes, a few pressed flowers, and even a small packet of human seeds from Earth. He spent the early hours studying the soil, kneeling near the water with his scanner. The sun rose high, warming the plain, and the sound of Drevians training in the distance echoed faintly. For a while, there was only quiet work. Then he heard footsteps, firm, steady, heavier than a human's. He looked up and saw her again. Rena walked toward him across the grass. She wore the same light armor, her long strides showing confidence. In her hand, he noticed, she still carried the golden flower he had given her the day before. It was fading, but she had kept it. You came back, Paul said, standing quickly. I said I would, Rena answered. She held up the flower. It is weaker now, but I still keep it. Tell me more about why humans give such gifts. Paul smiled nervously. All right. In human culture, flowers can mean many things. Sometimes they are for friendship, sometimes for respect, sometimes for love. They are used in ceremonies, birthdays, or even farewells. Rena tilted her head. So they change meaning depending on the time and the person? Yes, Paul said. That is part of what makes them special. The same flower can mean different things in different hands. She looked at the wilted petals for a long moment. Strange. My people prefer symbols that never change. A warrior's blade always means strength. A crest always means clan. There is no confusion. Yet your flowers seem powerful because they can carry many meanings. Paul nodded. Exactly. They are fragile but full of meaning. Rena lowered herself to sit on the grass near him. For a Drevian warrior, the act of sitting beside a human botanist seemed unusual, yet she did it with calm dignity. Paul felt a little awkward but also honored. He opened his pack and took out a small book of sketches. Here, these are some flowers from Earth. He showed her drawings of roses, tulips, lilies, daisies. Each of these has special meanings for us. Rena leaned closer, studying the images. This one with many petals, what does it mean? That's a rose, Paul explained. It often means love. But the color changes the meaning. A red rose is love, a yellow rose is friendship, a white rose is peace. Her silver eyes widened slightly. The same flower, many messages. It is like a code, Paul chuckled. Yes, a kind of code. Humans like giving meaning to small things. Rena looked thoughtful. She held the golden flower from Tyrannus gently, as if trying to imagine what meaning it carried. Then she asked, And what meaning did you give when you offered this to me? Paul felt heat rise to his face again. I told you respect, but maybe also friendship. You seemed curious and I wanted to share something. Friendship, Rena repeated. She seemed to test the word carefully. Among my people, friendship is not spoken easily. Warriors may fight beside each other for years before using that word. For you, it is given with a single flower. Paul smiled faintly. That's true. Humans open their hands quickly, sometimes too quickly, but that's how we build bridges. Rena was silent for a while, watching the river flow. Finally, she said, "Your ways are soft, yet they stay in the mind. I keep thinking about this flower, about what it means. My kin laughed yesterday. They said I had been tricked into holding a weak human thing. But I do not feel weak." Paul glanced at her. "Maybe that's because kindness isn't weakness. It takes strength, too, in a different way." Her gaze turned to him sharply, then softened. "You speak like a teacher." He laughed a little. "I just study plants. They teach me more than I teach anyone." For the next hours, Paul showed her various plants he had found. Some leaves could heal burns when crushed. Others could be used in teas to calm pain. Rena listened closely, asking question after question. She touched the plants carefully, her large hands surprisingly gentle when handling small leaves. At one point she asked, "Do humans truly heal warriors with these fragile things? Not with machines or tools, but with roots and flowers?" Paul nodded. "Yes, long before machines, humans used plants for medicine. Some still do. Nature gives us answers if we look." Rena's eyes glowed faintly in the sunlight. "Then perhaps your flowers carry more strength than my people think." As the day grew warmer, they shared simple food, bread from Paul's pack and dried fruit Rena carried. They sat together by the river, two beings from different worlds yet strangely at ease. When the afternoon sun began to lower, a group of Drevians appeared in the distance. They were warriors training with long staffs, their voices carrying across the plain. Some of them noticed Rena sitting with Paul. Murmurs rose. A few pointed and laughed. Paul shifted uncomfortably. "They don't seem happy." Rena's face hardened. "They do not understand. They think a warrior should not waste time with soft human talk. But I do not care. Doesn't it cause trouble for you?" Paul asked quietly. "Maybe," Rena admitted. "But I choose what I learn. If my people laugh, let them laugh. I am not ashamed." Paul felt a small respect growing inside him. She was not only strong in body but strong in mind, willing to stand apart. As the Drevians left, Rena rose to her feet. She still held the fading flower. "Paul, I will return again. You will teach me more about these plants, about your human ways." He nodded. "Of course. I'd be glad to." Before leaving, she asked one more question. If one day a human gave a flower to another human, meaning love, how would the other answer? Paul thought for a moment. They might smile or they might give another flower back. Sometimes they say yes with words, sometimes with just a look. Rena seemed to consider this deeply. Then she turned and walked away, tall and proud, the fading flower still in her hand. That night, Paul lay in his bunk in the colony, unable to sleep. He replayed her questions again and again. She had listened so carefully as if every word mattered, and when she asked about love, her eyes had seemed different, almost searching. He laughed softly to himself. "No, she's just curious," he whispered. "She's trying to understand humans." But another part of him wondered, what if curiosity was only the beginning? Days passed after Rena's first real visit. Paul noticed she appeared more often at the riverbank, sometimes bringing small samples of Drevian's plants, sometimes asking more about human life. Their friendship was growing, and yet with every meeting, Paul could sense a change in Rena. She seemed curious, yes, but also troubled. The Drevians were a proud people. They trained constantly, and warriors often judged each other by physical strength. Paul had never seen them react to a human with respect, yet Rena's openness had caused whispers among her kin. Rumors spread, carried by Drevians passing near the river. Some laughed, some frowned, and some merely shook their heads. One morning, Paul noticed Rena standing near the water, staring at the golden flower she had kept from his first visit. It was more wilted now, but she had preserved it carefully. "I was wrong," she said softly when Paul approached. "I thought it weak. I thought it would fade and mean nothing. But it has stayed in my mind longer than any symbol my people use." Paul smiled. "That's the thing about fragile things. Sometimes they last only in memory, and that can be stronger than the longest blade." Rena turned her glowing eyes to him. "You speak in strange ways, human. Strength is not always in the hand that fights." Paul shook his head. "Humans have many types of strength. There is endurance, courage, kindness, even patience. Sometimes kindness takes more effort than swinging a sword." She studied him. "I think I understand. But my people, they do not." Paul noticed tension in her posture. "Do they say anything?" "They whisper," Rena admitted. "Some say I waste time learning human ways. Some say I risk my honor sitting with a weak human. I do not care. Yet their words make me think. Maybe they are right. Maybe I am wrong to follow this curiosity. Paul felt a pang of worry. Rena, your curiosity is not weakness. It is learning. If your people cannot see it, that is their loss. Rena held the flower close, almost as if it gave her courage. I know, but one day someone might challenge me because of this. If they do, I will have to choose. Strength can be tested not by war alone, but by courage to stand apart. The wind blew gently across the plain. Paul noticed that the light in her eyes reflected both resolve and uncertainty. He thought about how humans often faced impossible odds yet survived through wisdom and cooperation. Perhaps he could show her the same. Over the next few days, Paul began teaching Rena more about human plants, and she learned quickly. She asked about which plants could heal wounds, which could be used for food, and which were purely for beauty. Paul watched her carefully handle each sample, her silver fingers surprisingly gentle despite her imposing form. One afternoon, as they studied a small patch of herbs, Rena paused. Paul, why do humans make gardens? Paul laughed lightly. To enjoy life. To show care. To make a place where people feel peace. Peace, Rena repeated. Her voice was quiet, almost thoughtful. My people do not stop for peace. They move, they train, they fight. Rest is for the weak, Paul frowned. Rest is for the strong too. Even warriors need time to think. Even machines need maintenance. A tired body cannot fight forever. Rena looked at him seriously. You speak like my teacher again. But your words? They feel different. They feel true. Their moments of calm were sometimes interrupted by others. One day, a group of Dravians appeared near the riverbank. They were young warriors, one taller and more muscular than the others, and they stared at Rena with clear suspicion. You waste time with humans? The tallest one demanded, his voice low and dangerous. Your place is in training, not sitting with a weak human. Rena rose slowly. Her stance was firm, her hands resting on the sides of her armor. I learn what I choose to learn, she said calmly. I choose to learn from this human. He teaches me things my people do not value. The warrior laughed lightly, showing sharp teeth. Your people are proud. You will dishonor yourself if you follow a human's ways. Paul felt a wave of fear for her. He had never seen Dravians so serious before. He stepped forward cautiously. Rena, you do not need to fight. I can explain. She raised a hand, stopping him. No, Paul, this is my challenge. If I do not stand firm, my people will think human ways are weakness. I cannot let that happen. Stand behind me. Paul nodded, standing near the edge of the river. He knew she was brave, yet he could see the tension building around them. The warrior stared at the flower in her hand. It had survived the days, and somehow it had become a symbol not just of curiosity but of courage. Rena lifted the flower slightly. This symbol is stronger than you think. It shows that strength can exist in small things. My strength is not only in my body, but in my mind and choices. The tall warrior frowned, then studied her for a long moment. He seemed unsure how to respond. Some of the younger warriors whispered to each other, clearly impressed, though they tried not to show it. Finally, the warrior stepped back. Perhaps there is more to your ways than we thought. But remember, strength is tested not by flowers alone. Rena nodded. I know, but strength is also tested when you choose a path that others do not understand. This is my path. Paul felt relief and admiration swell inside him. Rena was not only brave but wise in ways that could match her people's greatest warriors. After the group left, she turned to Paul. You see? Even my people begin to understand, slowly. They may still laugh, but they think. That is the start of change, Paul smiled. It is a good start. And you have done this yourself. No one forced you. Rena's eyes glimmered in the late afternoon light. I keep this flower not only for its beauty, but for what it taught me. Your people's ways are strange, yet powerful. Paul felt a quiet happiness. In a few days, they had learned more from each other than he had expected. He also realized that Rena's openness, her willingness to question her own people, was unusual even for humans. He admired her greatly. Over the next week, they continued their lessons and experiments with plants. Paul showed her how to press flowers properly, how to plant seeds in soil that was not native to Tyrannus, and how some herbs could be combined to make healing pastes. Rena absorbed everything, asking precise questions and remembering details. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Rena sat beside Paul, holding a pressed flower she had prepared herself. I kept this one, she said softly. I made sure it would not fade too quickly. I want to remember our lessons, human ways, and perhaps myself in a new way. Paul took it from her hand carefully. You have learned quickly. You are patient and careful. You have a mind that understands more than most humans I know. Rena smiled faintly. Maybe we are not so different, you and I. My people value strength in the body, yours value strength in other ways. But we can both be strong, just differently. Paul nodded. Yes, that is true. Their bond continued to grow, yet the whispers from Rena's people never fully stopped. Some warriors still watched from afar. Paul realized that Rena's choices could soon face greater challenges. Her curiosity, combined with her courage, might be tested more than he could imagine. That night, Paul returned to his quarters, thinking about the delicate flower and the powerful Drevian woman who had kept it. He realized that what began as a simple gesture, offering a flower, had started something much larger, something that could change how humans and Drevians viewed each other. And somewhere deep inside he felt a spark of hope. Perhaps the small gift of a fragile flower could become a bridge between two very different worlds. The days passed quietly at first, with Paul and Rena continuing their study of plants. They had grown comfortable together, sharing small discoveries and learning from each other. Yet the peace could not last forever. Among Rena's people, whispers had turned into serious concern. Some of the warriors believed she was weakening herself by spending time with a human. One morning, a messenger arrived at the riverbank. He was a young Drevian warrior, his silver armor shining in the sunlight, eyes sharp and full of purpose. Rena, he said, voice firm, the elders have called for a challenge. They question your loyalty to our ways. They say you spend too much time learning human ways and not enough time in training. You must answer for this. Rena's eyes narrowed, yet she remained calm. She turned to Paul briefly. I must face this, she said. Stand with me, but stay safe. Paul's heart raced. I will stay, but I cannot fight for you. Are you sure? I am sure, she replied. Her gaze was steady, unwavering. This is my choice. Your presence gives me courage, even if you cannot fight. They walked together to the central training ground, a wide open area where Drevians usually sparred with staffs. Several warriors had gathered, watching silently. At the center stood the elder of Rena's clan, tall and imposing, with eyes that seemed to look through her. Rena, the elder said, voice echoing, you have spent days with a human studying their ways. Do you intend to follow this path or return to the strength of your people? Rena lifted her chin. I choose both. I will remain true to my people, but I will also learn from humans. Strength is not only in fighting. Wisdom, patience, and kindness are strength too. A murmur ran through the crowd. Some warriors frowned, whispering to each other. One of the younger warriors stepped forward. How can you claim strength by holding a weak human flower? Show us your power with your body, not words. Rena's gaze shifted to the golden flower she had preserved. She lifted it for all to see. This flower may seem fragile, she said firmly, but it has taught me courage. I have chosen a path that requires strength of mind, and that is as real as strength of body. I will not be ashamed of learning and kindness. The elder studied her carefully. He seemed surprised by her confidence. Words alone are not enough. Show us proof. Rena straightened. I will not fight without reason. But if my people cannot see wisdom as strength, then they have yet to learn. Paul watched, impressed by her courage. He wished he could do more, but he stayed back, knowing that Rena's strength was not in his hands. One of the rival warriors moved closer. He sneered. Then you will face a test. If you are truly strong, you will endure the trial. You will demonstrate that your choice is worthy. Rena nodded calmly. I accept. I will endure. The trial began with physical challenges, as was tradition. Rena had to run across the training ground while carrying weighted objects, jump across wide gaps, and show agility with a staff. Paul could see her strength easily matched and in some ways surpassed many of her peers. Yet the final challenge was different. The elder stepped forward. The final test is not only body but mind. You must face the choice between following human ways or ignoring them forever. You must defend your decision in front of your people, and they will decide if it is worthy of respect. Rena took a deep breath. She stepped to the center and held up the golden flower. I will defend my choice, she said. I keep this flower not because it is strong in the hand, but because it taught me to think and choose for myself. Strength is not only in combat. Strength is in the mind that chooses wisely. I will not abandon knowledge and kindness. I will not abandon understanding. A hush fell over the crowd. The young warriors looked at each other, unsure how to respond. Some of the elders murmured quietly. Paul could see a shift in their expressions. Rena's courage and clarity were impressive. One of the rival warriors stepped forward, anger flashing in his eyes. Your words are weak. Show us more than talking. Rena looked him in the eyes. Do you think strength is only in beating others? Wisdom, courage, and the ability to change minds are also strength. You have not understood this yet. The warrior hesitated. Her words were not only bold but true. He did not expect a young woman, even a Drevian, to speak with such clarity and confidence. The elder nodded slowly. You have defended your choice well. You have shown that strength can exist in more ways than we have taught. This is the lesson humans teach, and perhaps we can learn from it. Rena lowered the flower, a small smile appearing. She looked toward Paul, who gave her a subtle nod of encouragement. She had passed the test not by combat alone, but by showing courage, wisdom, and conviction. The rival warrior stepped back, clearly unwilling to challenge her further. Some younger warriors whispered to each other, realizing that perhaps there was more to strength than they had thought. After the trial, the elder approached Rena. You have shown courage, wisdom, and loyalty. Your choice is unusual, but it is worthy. Others may still doubt, but your path is respected. Rena bowed slightly. Thank you. I hope my people will learn that strength is not one thing alone. Paul approached her slowly. I am proud of you. You are amazing, she smiled faintly. Your words gave me courage. Even a human can teach strength in ways I did not expect. They walked together back to the riverbank. Paul noticed how she carried herself, proud yet changed. The flower in her hand seemed brighter somehow, as if it had absorbed the energy of the trial. Over the next days, Rena continued to study human plants with renewed focus. The other Drevians began to watch from a distance, some with curiosity, some with respect. The golden flower became a symbol not only of human ways, but of Rena's courage to choose her own path. One evening, as they sat by the river, Rena turned to Paul. Your people's ways are strange, human, but they have taught me much. Courage is not only in the hand that fights, but in the mind that chooses wisely. I will remember this always. Paul smiled. I am glad you see that. And you have taught me something too, that courage can come in many forms. Rena looked at the flower again, carefully holding it between her fingers. I will plant flowers like this on my world. Perhaps then others will understand that strength is not only in power, but also in care, learning, and choice. Paul felt a quiet warmth inside him. What began as a simple gesture, giving a flower, had turned into something far greater. It had created understanding between worlds and a bridge between two very different peoples. That night, Paul returned to his quarters, thinking about how fragile things could hold great power. A small flower, a simple gesture, had taught lessons that weapons never could. And Rena, the proud Drevian warrior, had shown him that courage and wisdom could shine brighter than the strongest blade. The storm had ended hours ago, but the memory of it still lingered in the hearts of both humans and Arvin. The shattered relay tower stood tall again, patched with human tools and quick thinking. Lights had returned to the settlement, and for the first time since the crisis, the air felt calm. Yet there was still a silence between the two peoples, a silence heavier than the storm itself. Ryan sat on a stone bench near the edge of the alien gardens. His clothes were torn and his hands carried scratches from metal and rock, but his eyes watched the blossoms swaying in the soft wind. He remembered how it all started with a single flower. He had not known that such a small act could lead to confusion, questions, and now something larger than himself. Sira approached slowly. She carried a thin crystal sheet pressed carefully between her hands. Inside it, preserved and glowing with faint color, was the flower he had once given her. She stopped in front of him, her gaze steady, her voice calm but firm. You gave this to me without knowing its weight among my people, she said. Yet you risked your life for strangers. You ran into the storm with no promise of reward. I cannot ignore that. Ryan looked at the flower within the crystal. On Earth, he explained, flowers do not last. They wither. That is why we give them. They remind us that beauty and kindness should be shared before time takes them away. I did not know your customs, but I wanted to share a small piece of my world. Sira tilted her head, the way her people often did when puzzled. You value what does not last. That is unusual. My people value what endures, what cannot be broken. For us, a gift is not a passing thing. It is a bond that shapes the future. Maybe that is why humans are different, Ryan said. We know we are not permanent. Our lives are short compared to yours. We try to make meaning with the time we have. Sometimes that meaning is a flower. Sometimes it is the choice to stand in the storm when everyone else hesitates. She studied him for a long moment. Her people had always seen humans as fragile, easily broken, unlikely to stand equal among the great civilizations. Yet here was proof that fragility could carry strength. A storm that had frightened even the Arvin was faced by a human with no hesitation. She placed the crystal sheet in his hands. I kept it, not because I believed your gesture was binding, but because I wanted to understand. I see now that humans give not only objects, but also pieces of their spirit. That is why your small gift has more meaning than I first thought. Ryan turned the crystal in his hands, watching the flower glow softly inside. So what do we do now? He asked with a gentle smile. Sira looked up at the sky where stars were just beginning to appear. We tell our people that humans are not weak. We tell them that a gift can be more than a contract. We tell them that sometimes even a fragile thing can carry strength. As night settled over the gardens, the two sat in silence. Around them, Arvin citizens and human delegates moved through the restored streets, sharing tools, food, and laughter. The storm had forced them to work together, and now the walls of misunderstanding had begun to fall. For Sira, the lesson was clear. Strength was not only in mettle or endurance, it was also in compassion, in daring to act, in giving something that might not last but still held meaning. For Ryan, the lesson was simpler. A flower could change more than a single day. It could change the way two species saw each other. Days passed, and the story of the storm spread across the Arvin world. Whispers of the human who gave a flower and faced the storm reached every hall and chamber. Many Arvin who once doubted humanity now looked upon them with respect. When the council gathered again, it was no longer only about trade or treaties. It was about understanding. Sira spoke before her council, standing tall with the crystal flower in her hand. This was given to me without thought of gain. It was given because beauty deserves to be shared. We thought humans weak because their lives are brief, but it is because of that briefness that they act with urgency, courage, and heart. If they can give meaning to a fragile flower, imagine what they can give to the stars. The chamber fell into thoughtful silence. The leaders of her people had seen the storm, had seen the human risk himself when no promise bound him. They could not deny her words. Respect for humanity grew, not out of fear, but out of recognition. Later, when Ryan prepared to leave with his fellow humans, Sira walked with him to the edge of the landing field. The ship stood ready, engines humming softly, but she did not rush to speak. She let the quiet linger until the moment felt right. You once asked what we should do now, she said. I believe the answer is simple. We will walk forward together. Your people will teach us to value what is fleeting. We will teach your people to honor what endures. Between us, perhaps we will find balance, Ryan nodded. He held the crystal flower close, understanding it was no longer just a token. It was a bridge. Then let us make sure this is not the end, he replied. Let us keep building meaning one step at a time. The engines of the ship roared to life, but in that moment, both human and Arvin felt something new had been planted. Not just a flower, but trust. Not just a gesture, but a future. And as the ship rose into the sky, carrying humans back to their place among the stars, the Arvin watched with new eyes. They no longer saw a fragile species. They saw a people who could turn a simple flower into a legacy that would never fade. In the quiet that followed, Sira whispered to herself, perhaps this is how humans ask for mates. But more than that, this is how humans teach us what it means to live. The garden bloomed around her, the storm long gone and the memory of a fragile flower now strong enough to shape the destiny of two worlds. Word count. 1630.